Hello, I'm Weerada. I'm the CEO and co-founder of FilmDoo. I'm going to talk today about a little different approach to our journey, but also how COVID has actually influenced and is now redirected our company. So it's a little bit of a story. So we launched in 2015, and our original vision is simply a movie streaming platform that helps people to discover and watch great films from around the world. So if you come to FilmDoo, that's what you will see. Our slogan is "Get connected to the world through film." And I'm very proud to see that we were mentioning Guy's report earlier, because we do have one of the world's biggest international film catalog. We have a very strong European catalog, French, Italian, Spanish, but of course also other languages like Asian languages, Japanese, Chinese, etc. So essentially when we started out, this is actually the area that we were looking to help with. And 50,000 films get made around the world every year. But increasingly, as you know, it's actually becoming more difficult for these films to get distributed, sometimes even festival award-winning films. And a lot of the films just stayed in their country or just get distributed to a few countries. And especially, ironically, as we have many big players launching now, they are, as we've just seen, increasingly doing their own content or doing their own series. So actually, the problem of international film release and distribution, especially for independent and international film, is actually greater now than ever. So what's particularly interesting is that actually, and I think Michael said this a few times as well, is that films is more than just films, right? They're stories, and it's also about culture. So to quote Ted Hope, who's knows it much better than I do, the producer of 21 Grams, he said, what's great about movies is that they have a unique capacity to create empathy for people and actions we don't know and have not yet experienced. And this is important because it's about to explain why we're setting out on the journey we're setting. So about a year ago, we started to notice something very interesting. And this was, of course, as we have also seen, being accelerated by the COVID pandemic. Over 80% of our traffic is coming from language-related searches. And this makes sense because we have a lot of foreign language films. So for example, I'm learning French, where can I watch French films? I'm learning Italian, where can I watch Italian films? So we ran a survey to our users. Over 70% said the number one reason they're coming to FilmDoo is they are learning a foreign language. Super, super, super interesting. And it makes sense, right? How can you learn a language if you don't understand the culture or the social context? There's another quote that I really like that mentions that learning a language, you can't separate the spice from the food. Learning a language, you need to understand the culture, because the culture is like the spice of that food. And it's so important because actually films is the most powerful medium for you to understand the social and the cultural context, and actually to take a language learner all the way to fluency, which is lacking in a lot of other language learning tools or apps out there. So actually with this discovery, and it was quite timely with what was about to happen over the next few months, was that we saw there was actually an opportunity in the VOD space, especially when it became more apparent that it's becoming more competitive, just from the global players launching and just from the entertainment side. But by expanding into the online language learning market, it allows us to actually expand into a $350 billion edtech market and a $60 billion language learning market, growing 20% year on year. Super exciting because it allows us to bring so much more value, new audiences to films, especially European films, from a language learning market. And a lot of these language learners really don't mind if they're older films or back catalog, right? So consequently, we've now developed a whole suite of new technology that allows you to play games while watching a film, whether in a classroom with other students or as part of self-study or homework, where effectively both teachers and students can learn languages and teach languages in a fun and easy way using films, or rather engaging or interactive films. So actually this is the gap that we're now differentiating. And it's so important, as we've seen, especially for niche players, to differentiate and find your own voices. And our voice is this international film, connecting the world through film, which still resonates, but also now bringing the power to learn languages through great films from around the world. So it's bringing films, games, and AI together. So why is this actually interesting? Because during COVID, our traction didn't come just from the original FilmDoo.com website or from the B2C. It actually came from language learning institutions. So because we launched in January, we started getting approached a lot more by language tutors, independent language tutors, who are now using our platform to teach Spanish classes, English classes, using films and the technology that they can use with their students. But actually, even the bigger language learning institutions are now approaching us and say, oh wow, could you supply us with a whole catalog of films by this language that we could use for our teachers and for our classes to create learning material? So that was super interesting because our traction came from the B2B element. It allows us to move to a whole new market. And COVID, as you know, overnight, schools, universities, language schools have all had to go online overnight. So online learning has become so much more important. Teachers, parents, tutors are all looking for ways to help their students stay more engaged. And guess what? The best way to stay engaged is through video and content. You know, students get bored after a while. It's just Zoom calls after Zoom calls, lessons after lessons online. But there's one thing people do 100% of the time, 100% every day, whether it's in our research or other research, and they watch some sort of content. Features, videos, YouTube video, short films, Facebook video. And that is how it's natural. Using films to help students stay engaged, especially now, engage online, is so powerful. And that's why we're seeing a lot of interest now from the language learning institutions. So we have a technology which you can visit at FilmDoo.academy. That's a new site that we launched a few months ago. And you can play along and a game while watching a film, test your knowledge, compete with other students. And these are some of the snapshots that I mentioned, where we're actually being used now by a number of language schools, in trials with major universities in the US, in Asia, and in the UK. And that's our journey. So it hasn't been a straightforward journey because it hasn't been just on our website. We've actually expanded to a whole new sector, found a whole new type of market, expanded into education. But at the heart, it's the same thing, right? We're finding audiences for these films, we're finding new homes for these films, and we're connecting with viewers who want to watch great content, but now they want to learn something too. So just before I wrap up with this little short introduction, I also have a very exciting announcement. So actually at Venice Film Festival, I'd like to let you know that actually FilmDoo is using this opportunity to announce an exciting new feature, our content upload feature, which will actually now allow us to work with a lot more independent filmmakers, producers, as well as, of course, content owners like sales and distributors, where from around the world, you'll now be able to upload your content directly into FilmDoo, and that makes it a lot more straightforward for the films to be selected and be part of not just the FilmDoo platform, but now our edutainment language learning platform as well. Thank you.
There you go, a little exclusive there. I don't know how we're going to do this thing. I'm sure we're going to wreck this. We'll pass it along.